don't think it's right. They get out to
Fortunately, they both be quite long films because it's 6 courses, well, before the...
There's 128 too. Just this year they're all the modules are different things.
What do you have?
It's alright. I'm applying for driving program. You just said we don't have
No, me, that's not what I meant online.
Someone's going up to use on their phone there.
One of the things he did when you keep taking away, slowly they realize. Good morning, everyone. Today's going to be really, really exciting. We've got a colleague of David who is flown in from Detroit. So this is really, really exciting. Joe Ross is going to do the session. I'm going to stay in for about half an hour and then come back for the last half hour. Enjoy. I can't wait to hear what you've got to say, and we can go from there. Thanks,
Appreciate it. Good morning, guys. How are you? Excited to be here. Hopefully we'll make this exciting for you as well, and interesting and engaging. We've got a pretty decent agenda covering a couple hours. We're going to do it in 2, maybe 3 sessions. We'll do a welcome and introductions. We'll look at the previous session assignment and walk through that. I think we'll do. I think we're expected to do sort of a readout of Ewan's session, sort of how your groups took that assignment and what activities you've done there. Hopefully, you're prepared to discuss what you've done with that assignment. And then the first hour or so, I'll spend on some foundational areas of product management. This entire lesson today is really on product management, where David kicked it off in lesson 1. Ewan started to focus on product strategy. I'm going to get into the meat of product management and what that means. Talk a lot about the teams that are needed for successful product management. And we'll do a lot of foundational stuff in the first hour, setting the stage for the second hour and a half after the break, where we'll talk more about execution and governance. So executing on product management. So how do we actually do product management? How do we get into the market and engage and understand market problems? And then the governance piece on the end is really all about how do we make sure we're making the right decisions, and how do we make trade-off decisions? Because you can't do everything. You can only do so much. And you always have to make these tough decisions around what's the most important thing to do for the market, for the business, etc. So, and then finally, we'll close out with an assignment for lesson 3, and go from there. So, I'll tell you first. We'll start out. We're going to tell you a little bit about me. So, Annalou mentioned I flew in from Detroit, Michigan, in the U.S. I've got my American flag with my map of the great state of Michigan listed there, and you see the old English D for Detroit, you're probably familiar with. Very proud to be from the Metro Detroit area, born and raised in Michigan, and it is a wonderful place to live. I don't plan to move unless I move into Scotland or something. it is a great place to live and work and to raise a family. That's my crew in the middle. That's the Ross clan from Oxford, Michigan. My wife Jeanette and my 3 little girls, Lily, Grace, and Addison. Lily and Grace are 5 and Addison's 7. So it's a lot of fun at home, and they certainly miss me when I'm traveling like this, and I miss them as well. But it's fulfilling for me certainly to be here and to be able to engage and talk about product management, the discipline I've been doing really my whole life, my whole professional life, and be able to teach. I enjoy teaching, I enjoy communicating, and hopefully it'll show in the presentation today. So that's my crew. Now the far right is the Ross clan. There's a song called The Duke of Earl that was not written about me or my family, and in fact I don't even know if I'm part of the Ross clan, but I wish I was. So maybe someday I'll find that to be true. But it's good to be in Scotland again. My wife Jeanette and I spent our honeymoon in doing some traveling, and one of our first stops was Glasgow and then on to Edinburgh, and spent a few days getting to know Scotland a little bit, and I haven't been back since, and I think it'll be 10 years this August since I've been back, so good to see Dundee for the first time, and good to be here. So what was that?
So the first person to say that.
First person to say good to be in Dundee. It's being recorded, so the Dundee Chamber of Commerce can use it if you'd like, but it's good to be here, for real. Again, I'll give you just a little bit of background so you sort of get a sense for where I'm coming from a product management perspective. Give you some context on my career and my approach to product management, my experience there. So I started my career in product management in the early 90s with a startup organization. I was doing product management before I even knew what product management was. I didn't even know it was a discipline. When you get involved in a startup, you're quickly thrown in the middle of a lot of things. And it was an organization that started doing professional services. We really didn't even have what I would call a product. When the business first started out, we were doing network integration, building clone computers, and then doing networking in businesses, and then later doing wide area networking to connect businesses when that started to really take off in the early 90s. And that type of business was a very lumpy business. It was project-based. It was go in, assess what the business needed, do a statement of work to identify what it was going to cost that business to deliver that, and then send out your technicians and your engineers to go deploy the solution, and then collect the check and off to the next one. And so after a few years of growing pretty quickly, we decided to transform that business into more of a services business, looking for a reoccurring revenue stream rather than this lumpy project type of business. And as soon as you start doing reoccurring revenue streams and contracting for services, you now suddenly have a product that you need to deliver and decide how you're going to deliver it, how you're going to support it, how are you going to price it. It became much more of a product need. So I started doing product management there. And for the next 15 years or so, did that through multiple acquisitions. And I think 15 years later, from a startup of maybe the first of 3 employees, 15 years later I woke up and I was working for a telephone company, 3 or 4 acquisitions later. And the phone company bought us for data services and did not know what to do with us. And I saw the writing on the wall and said, well, I love product management. These guys don't know what the hell they're doing, and I'm out of here. So I was fortunate enough to find a home at a company called McKesson Corporation. McKesson is one of the world's largest healthcare services companies. It's a Fortune 5 company headquartered out of San Francisco. They are a 180-year-old company that has their roots in pharmaceutical distribution. And the business unit I worked for in Michigan was software that helped retail pharmacies serve their patients. So In the US, when you come into a pharmacy, you hand them a paper prescription or an electronic prescription comes from the doctor to the retail pharmacy, and you come in and say, I'm here to get my prescription, and the computer systems and the software behind the counter make sure that the right drugs are being dispensed, that there's no drug interactions from multiple drugs that the patient may be taking. It allows you to then go and submit claims to the insurance companies who then reimburse the pharmacists. The software that manages the inventory, the patient, the payment, all the way through to the point of sale system where the money is exchanged. So at McKesson Corporation, I spent 10 years there with a portfolio of software and services that we grew pretty significantly. After 10 years, I decided that I wanted to get out of a Fortune 5 environment. I'd had enough of the large corporate bureaucracy that very conservative, wonderful company. I would recommend McKesson to anybody. It was a fabulous experience for sure, but after 10 years it was time for change. And I ended up finding an opportunity close to home in Michigan. Our headquarters for workforce software is in Livonia, Michigan. Happens to be about an hour commute, hour and 15 from my home in Oxford, Michigan, which isn't awesome, but it's a good place to be. And at Workforce Software, I'm responsible for global product management. So we have, and I've been there since April, so about 6 months into Workforce Software. We have a portfolio of product software that is in the workforce management domain. So David Fokker probably talked to you a bit about workplace systems, which he was a CEO of. That was a company that Workforce acquired a couple months after I started at Workforce. And we have software solutions that really, if you think about the transaction of work, when you go in and do work in an office in a corporate environment, there's sort of 3 primary systems that employee information is contained in. One is sort of the human resources system, human capital management, performance management, etc. Companies like SAP and their SuccessFactors or Oracle, Workday, etc. They have the HCM systems. On the far right-hand side, you have your payroll systems. So how do you get paid? So who is the employee, and then how do you get paid? Companies like ADP are some of the market leaders in payroll globally. In the center of all of that, there's a whole discipline called workforce management. And workforce management is all about workforce optimization, things like scheduling staff appropriately, and then workforce management, things like time and attendance and leave management and compliance with leave laws and labor laws, etc. So the workforce management software that the portfolio we have is really that centerpiece. And so it's been an exciting learning experience for me throughout my career, moving from healthcare and retail pharmacy into a brand new domain of workforce management. But product management is universal. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what product it is, what domain it is. The principles apply. And it's really, and we'll get into that after we do the review from last session and a lot of details on the foundations, but it doesn't matter what the product is. If you understand the product management discipline, you are passionate about engaging the market and understanding their problems so that you can solve those problems ideally via your products, it doesn't really matter what the product is. So from healthcare to a very broad discipline of workforce management, it all applies. So that's a little bit about me, where I've come from, why I'm here, and I think we'll transition from there into the next bit. Any questions on that before we move forward? And please, today I hope, Ewan gave me a little tip, although it was because he was probably remote and was unable to get back into his home country of Scotland. Or actually, he could get him, but he couldn't get back to the States where his family was. I guess that's what it was. He gave me the tip that you guys were relatively quiet. when you did ask questions, they were very intelligent. But I'm hoping you guys will engage today, because I hate just standing up here talking. It's not as much fun. So please feel free to interrupt, and if you've got questions, just raise a hand. We'll stop and dig in. So appreciate it. Good. So with that, let's talk about the prior session assignment. So Ewan had provided an assignment from last week, gave you a little bit of background on workforce software, which I just described. He used our business as an example of a market for you to go into and take a look at some market sizing around the workforce management space. He was asking you to do the market sizing, state your assumptions, include the measure of value, the unit of value, geography, vertical segmentations, list the data sources you used, and report on your findings in a format suitable for senior management to use to make a decision. So I think the idea was that if you were going into the workforce management market, or maybe if you were even in the workforce management market, go and find a segment of that market, size it, and understand how large of an opportunity it may be to bring product into that particular market. So when we do these prior session assignments, I'm assuming we'll do our round robin by teams, and maybe you guys can just speak to that. I don't know which team might want to start, but if you want to just... Good.
Team 1 will start.
Team 1, perfect.
So,
What's your name and where are you from?
oh, I'm Julius. I'm Dutch, and I just came to Scotland post-grad.
Perfect.
So our group, we didn't do the entire market for workforce software. We specified ourselves for the UK market and the vertical market of retail industry. We found a number is that in the retail industry, about 3 million employees are here in the UK. Of that, 1/3 is between the ages of 19 and 25, which is probably the age of people with a smartphone, for which workforce software would be. But we are focusing on the HR part, by the way.
Okay.
And so we verified that and saw that about 87% of those people between the ages of 19 and 25 actually have a smartphone, so our assumption was quite correct. So based on that, we tried to make a market sizing in terms of price by taking the modal income for these people, which is around £10. So we made a guess or an estimate that if you do not have proper planning of those people, you would be wasting around an hour a week for those people because they are improperly aligned. We also estimated that you need to plan in because you don't have a planning software, so you need to plan those people in, which is costing your staff time and money. So with all that in mind, we also took into account the understaffing, because understaffing takes up a lot of money as well, because not only have you not paid, you've saved the money by not having a member staff there, but you're also losing money because potential customers are actually not buying anything. So we've added that all up with our very rough estimations and came up with around 1 billion in possible losses for the entire UK market there. So with the 1 billion of possible losses in the entire UK retail market with the teenage employees, if you have a 10% market share, that would mean you have a potential earning of £100 million.
So that's interesting. So did you then, how did you do the math on the 400 million pounds? Were you suggesting that the businesses would pay a certain fee per employee per month for your solution? How were you doing the sizing calculation to get to the dollar amounts there?
So we had the 1 billion for the entire market, and then the 10% market share you'd strive to achieve in the first place, which would of course be optimistic to say the least, I think. But to get to that number, we took the modal income of those people that you are paying too much, or which is just statistics you can find online. We've got reports there.
Sure.
But we also made some estimations as to how many hours you require for extra recruiting, how much hours you require to plan everyone in.
So you were looking at the
losses incurred.
losses
Yes.
occurring for the business by not having, by this market,
Yes.
this particular market, for not having a solution.
Yeah, so from that, which is so the 10% we were targeting would then lose 100 million pounds. So of course you don't want your pricing for, if you want to serve all those people, you won't know what the pricing to be above those 100 million pounds.
Perfect.
Of course, when that, you're not going to equal it to that.
Yeah,
but
that's
you
what
know,
I was-
you
that's
have
what I was
top.
getting at.
Yeah, you know, it's not like you're gonna. But
We have a solution for you, but you will save no money. You're just going to give it to
Yeah.
us rather than lose it.
so yeah, you have to take that into account as well. We didn't get that far as to get like a perfect price. Because we don't know, we couldn't find anything on how Workforce actually offers their solution, but I guess it's something on a quote base, and then the amount of employees you have a certain license for how many people you have in your organization, and then you scale up.
Per employee per year, per
Yeah.
employee per month.
But then you also have a base price problem.
Correct. Yeah.
So
we
you
some
have to do-
modules like mobile could be an additional fee.
Yeah, so we were guessing that that would be something like that. So you have a base price, and then let's say 50,000 base price, and then £1 per employee per year, or something like that. So if you have a company of 50,000 people, you pay £100,000 a year.
Good.
That would be around what our guess.
Got it. Cool. Makes sense. How about how about team number 2? How did you guys go about it? It's team number 2 in the house. Team number 2.
You know, there's no sign, but in the interest of direct comparison, I could always. We did the same vertical segment as well, but we came with a different result from different methods.
Okay, which team are you guys?
I think we're 6, right?
Team number 6.
We have no idea.
I mean, you don't know your team number. What you got to put team name? No team name.
Yeah, we're the dream team.
The dream team. Got it. And what's your name and where you're from?
I'm Lewis. I'm Dundee. It's pretty boring.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the way we kind of we took it, we decided just for the sake of getting a decent sample, we do retail in the UK as well, and with employee numbers, we got about the same. It was 2.8 million was the figure we landed at, not 3 million. But anyway, we kind of we did an estimate basically over there's 10,755 businesses seemingly in retail in the UK just now. We made the assumption that the smallest shops probably wouldn't make use of the software, because if there's only say like 2-4 employees, scheduling is something they can just kind of work out themselves. Or rather, most of them would spend most of their time in the shops anyway as like full time. So based on a kind of sample that we took from shops in nearby, well, there's the Overgate nearby, which is a sort of shopping centre with various shop sizes with different numbers of employees. We decided that roughly 47% of the outlets there would be probably too small to actually use the software. 53% however would be of adequate size, but keeping in mind also that that's where the majority of employees are from. Because obviously the 47% are like 2 to 4 people, these ones have 50, 120, etc. So with all that in mind, let's see if I can remember my maths here. We said roughly, I think that, again, as they did, that there's a proportion who were able to use smartphones, able to use the software, and we took, I think, 30% off that, we had 70%. Yeah.
So 30% adoption rate?
30% of people would be over the age
Yeah,
that would not
so
like to use the software.
70%.
70%.
I arrived at 2.2 million there. Oh, that's because of getting rid of the businesses that were too small. We figured, again, it's a best of a wrong guess, but roughly 2.2 million would be employed by larger businesses that would make use of the software. So that's us at 1.5 million. Then we removed the people who wouldn't be able to use it. That lands us at 1,078,000. And then, of course, depending on how your pricing goes and, again, what modules might be taken, at £1 per person for the software, that's your minimum. And then from there you could expand up to 7 million. So obviously that's a tiny fraction of what these guys have, and to be honest, we weren't really sure either, because we had another method which resulted in us getting something, like an insane number. So we're not entirely sure which one is the more valid option.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's well done. I think when you think about the sizing of the market, you don't always know at that point in time when you're looking at the size whether or not, you've got to make some assumptions, as you did, around a certain tier of business may not need the solution. I think when you start getting into sort of the next level and you really start going and understanding the market problem and doing some validation, which we'll talk about in product management today, you'll have to start checking those assumptions, because how do you know that those folks with smaller number of employees don't have a need for some type of a mobile solution to manage their workforce?
Well, see, now I actually think that I remember maybe we took off less for that. We actually took off some because we figured, I remember now that we thought that within the whole retail sector, there'd be a bunch of employees, but then there'd be people above that, such as area managers, store managers, and people involved in executives there. And even though there'd be a minority, we still made a little reduction in our percentage from there, because they won't be using executives. So.
I think it was well done. Again, I think the point is that you have to make assumptions when you do your market sizing to start.
Yeah.
Then when you dig into the next level, you've got to quickly validate those assumptions to make sure, what are the riskiest assumptions that you made? And those are the assumptions you want to validate first, because if you have your entire business plan based on this sizing and there's one critical risky assumption, and if that thing falls off, it's like a house of cards. When you dig into the next bit, product management, understand the market, that's where you want to go first. You want to focus on the riskiest assumption first. But it's good, it's perfect what you needed to do from a market perspective.
No, the numbers about the size of the company, we include in our 10% market share. We only want 10%, the other 90% are probably not worth. Because what David said in last lecture is that workforce, I believe it was, they only focus on companies which have at least 5,000 employees up to 500,000. So you're not going for the largest companies, but you're not going for the smallest either. So that's why we kind of took the 10%, as in the largest won't do anything, and the smallest, like you say, will probably not have an interest in the software because it's too pricey or it's not relevant to what they're doing, because a simple Excel sheet would do the thing anyway. So that's why we came up with the 10%, because you're losing a lot of companies because they're not in your target area.
So workforce software depending on the market, has a different segment that we would go after, right? So we've got in Australia, for example, we have a product that is much more in the mid to lower tier market, but in the rest of the globe, we've got products that are much more up market. So there's opportunities in all of those segments. It's just about your market sizing is about where you want to fish where the fish are, and you want to decide how many fish are in that lake you're going to go throw a line into to make sure it's even worth it. And so there's a preliminary market sizing to decide where to focus, and then you did validate. It's good. Next team. You may not know your number.
We've actually done UK and retail as well. So we took a slightly different tack.
That's interesting, because workplace systems, now part of workforce software, David said that's exactly where they built their business. So that was an easy place to go, a smart place to go.
So we also did a subsegment of the solutions that Workforce offer. So instead of going for just the full product, we just went for the time and attendance. So the product doesn't deal with scheduling, it's just a case of
just tracking
the hours that people did. So we also came up with 2.8 million people working in retail. We saw a figure for 3 million, and I think it says that we found out that was by 2020, that they're going to be over 3, so it's a growing market.
By 2020, I think they're saying 50% of the labor force is going to be part-time contingent labor. That's one of the recent studies that we've seen, which would mean hourly, which is great for time and attendance.
So similarly to the other teams, we felt that smaller businesses with few employees probably wouldn't be able to track their time and attendance by like a spreadsheet or just like pen and paper kind of thing. So we went for a cut-off point of 100 employees. We thought that was reasonable size for a retail outlet or a chain with 100 employees. We found after some research that is 76.9% of retailers have 100.
Not 77%, 76.9.
76.9, that's what we got, that's what we found out.
Very accurate.
So the retail sector, as a lot of us know, is dominated by big players, big chains. Then what we did,
Do you know how many businesses that 100 employees or more consisted of? How many actual buyers?
that was 147,000 employers. To make,
147,000 employers, okay.
no, wait a minute, that's wrong.
No, yeah, it's right.
I think we had that somewhere, but we haven't put it in our Team Google Doc. I think it's in it. Oh, is it there?
Yeah, it's on the table, right?
Just have to, depending on the numbers you're doing, and I didn't catch this on the other one, so you just have to make sure that if you're looking at employee numbers, that they aren't buying the solution, right? Your buyers are gonna be the employers, so.
Okay. So we also felt that it was easier to target for selling the bigger chains, and you'd get more bang for your buck, rather than if you had to go around trying to sell to all the individual retailers as well. So with that, our buyer focus, that was 2,153,200 employees of the 2.8 million that we're servicing at. So we assumed that our direct marketing, because we were targeting the big chains, we could reach 75% of them. We made an assumption that of 80% of these probably are already using some kind of rota changing, and of the 20%, we felt that based on, there's a study by Kurt Salmon Institute or something, saying that of people and businesses looking to increase their productivity, 89% of them are willing to make a change. So of the 20% that weren't using it, we thought that 89% of them were ready to, if we showed it.
Potential buyers, yeah.
Yeah, they would go for it. So once we figured that out, we assumed that we could convert 8% of the people that were already using the rota software, so the 80%, 15% of the ones that weren't, and that came to a figure of 43,117 employees employed by all these people. We costed it with a figure, because we were doing the cheaper of the solutions, just time and attendance, we couldn't find any pricing information on the workforce website. So we looked
Top
at...
secret.
Sorry?
Top secret.
Well, it seems to be, yeah. So what we did was we looked at the competitors and we came up with like an average price. And so it's all based on per employee. So that's our kind of volume metric.
Per employee.
Per employee. Per employee per month, yeah. So we did a table. So because what they do is they cost it, so you get, as the company has more employees, it's cheaper per employee per month.
Yeah, tiered pricing.
So we did from 1 to 100 was about £3, and then for over 400 we've got as £1 per employee per month. So our total market was just over 100 million for the more expensive plan, and 33.6 million it would make for the cheapest one. And then when we did our calculations, the service market that we thought we could go for was 77 million at the top range, 25.84 at the bottom. And then the target that we think we could actually service was 5.27 million. So the one that we were actually going for.
We're going to actually focus on that.
Yeah, it was 5.27 million for the top end and 1.76 million for the bottom end. And that's what.
So how did you land on tiered pricing from a volume discount perspective? Was that based on
Well, that was based on.
insights from you saw from the other?
Yeah, we did comparisons,
Yeah.
that's what everyone,
That's what everybody's
doing.
doing, tiered pricing?
Yeah.
It's good.
So we also signed up. We pretended that we were a company to try and get some information. And John volunteered his mobile, so he's getting spammed by loads of salespeople. So we used that for some of. We weren't sure if that was us going up, but then we were like, yeah, let's just do it.
Can't find
You
anywhere.
know, it's a good question.
You couldn't find pricing for anything anywhere because
I
everyone
mean,
seems to hide it.
I've done it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question. Somebody needs to answer whether or not that's ethical or not. I think it is.
I mean, we signed up as Dundee University, so
Yeah.
technically it isn't wrong because we are part of the
You are part of Dundee
Yeah,
University.
exactly.
It's make up a fake company, so that's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff.
What you think you can service, I mean, you show the markets what you think you can take.
With this discussion, I got confused with serviceable and share of market.
It's okay, I think I got it. Who's next?
We picked the UK retail industry as well.
Let's see how this all works out. What's your name and where are you from?
Patrick, I'm from Germany. Yeah, we found out that there are 2.8 million people employed in the UK. We have that before, I think. And they're working for 290,000 retail outlets here in the UK. And we also found out that 18% of these people are managers or senior officials. And we assume that these are likely to work as full-time employees, so not partly employed, which leaves 2.3 million employees as our target group, basically, which is the volume metric in our case. And to calculate the share of the market, we researched that 66% of these 2.3 million employees work for the largest 75 retail companies here in the UK. And we assume that we only want to address these bigger retail companies because other companies which are too small are not interested in these solutions, in workforce management solutions, which leaves 1.5 million employees. And that makes 20,000 employees per retail company. So 1.5 million divided by 75, that's 20,000 employees per retail company in average. And then we assume that we could reach about 10% of these 75 retail industries and convince them to use workforce.
10% is the assumption I always start with. I don't know why. It feels right.
Yeah. And 10% of these 75 companies times 20,000 employees per company makes 150,000 employees in total, so 150,000 employees as users. And as you charge per user per month, that's 150,000 times price per month. Yes, and that's the price that the income made.
Did you come up with a proposed price in your sizing yet?
No.
Did you do the competitive intel on that one?
Didn't do that.
Okay. That's good. At least you know the size. Now competitive intel like these guys did and make a couple, unethical phone calls. See if you can come up with the price. Should be in line. That was good. Very succinct. I like that. Part of the piece that was listed here was your findings are not suitable for senior management use and make decision making. So you communicated that very clearly. So that was it. The rest of you, I'm sure, as you get into a PowerPoint deck, would have been much more succinct. Very well done. Anybody else? No? Good. Welcome. For those of you who've come in a little bit late, we're glad to have you. My name is Joe, and please make sure you guys interact with us today. We're trying to make this a little more lively and exciting than normal, so good to have you. So we are 43 minutes in, and I think we're going to transition into the foundational areas of product management. What I'd like to cover today is a couple of areas. I'm going to call it six key areas or questions I'd like to provide answers to, provide some insights on. There is certainly a lot of different approaches and thoughts on product management. I think there are some core fundamentals that have been pretty well documented and used and defined. But the questions I'd like to try to answer today are listed. So what is product management in general? What is this crazy discipline called product management? Why is it important to businesses? Why do they even care to have product management? Who's on the product management team? Which you'll see later. One of my favorite quotes is, "It takes great teams to make great products." It's not an individual who's, although I have been an individual product managers at the company before. It's not as fun or as effective, but great teams make great products. So who's on that team and what's their role and how do they interact? How do they support each other? We'll talk a lot about that today in Foundations. What are the product teams expected to deliver? Profitable products that delight customers would be a pretty cool thing to deliver. But what else are they looking expected from their employers, from the companies they're going to serve? What does a product management team need to be successful? They're not all successful. I've been in the position, not been successful throughout my career, and I can kind of, now in retrospect, know why. And this is about understanding what you really need, what's the core to allow you to be successful. And then in the end, how do you measure success? What are the KPIs that you need to use in order to demonstrate success in the discipline? So that's where we'll focus. Hopefully that'll provide you guys with some good context for session 1. And I think we'll spend, I think we're scheduled to spend an hour. We'll see if I have that much content or not. I want to start with sort of the history and evolution of product management. So I've been doing this job before I even knew it was a formal discipline, I've been doing product management for over 20 years. And it really wasn't until I was preparing content for this course that I actually took a step back and thought, where did this come from? Right? Who originated this thing? How has it evolved? So it was, it was a good opportunity for me to take a step back and think a little bit more deeply around discipline. But there's a man by the name of Neil McElroy, and he was at P&G in the 1930s. And he wrote a 800-word memo, essentially. And what he called out at that time was, at P&G they had, and I think in most businesses at the time, they had kind of a view of business that was very much macro. There wasn't a lot of focus on having individual resources focused on specific products. And so Neil went down the path of defining a new role he wanted to create at P&G called brand men. And brand men were going to be the individuals who were going to have a dedicated focus on a specific brand within P&G, a specific focus. They were going to be accountable and responsible for marketing, for understanding the market needs, and were going to target their energy and their efforts on that one brand. Seems simple, but in 1930s that was pretty revolutionary. And that really was, is now noted as sort of the starting point for what is now a more formal discipline of product management. So in the 1930s at Procter & Gamble, the theme was really about empathizing. So, the study they were using was really around understanding people and cultures, trying to understand the individual and societies, and understanding the people that were the buyers in a very meaningful way, and trying to get as close as they can to those buyers so that they could get better at marketing their products to those buyers to try to get more people to buy and generate more revenue and focus for their product. So at that time, in the 1930s, it was really about marketing and branding, and focused on understanding sort of the psychology. Psychology probably came a little bit later, but early phases of understanding the psychology of the buyer so that they could get more out of it. And so the approaches there were understanding users, understanding where sales can be improved, being the voice of the brand, trying new things, experimenting with those buyers in order to get the most out of whoever their target buyers were. So later, in the 1960s, Neil McElroy went off and taught at Stanford. And he was a professor there. And he started to teach his methodology and his approach and the things that he learned at Procter & Gamble. And students in that graduate class at Stanford included Hewlett and Packard. And those individuals took that course and absorb the knowledge that and the experience that came out of the P&G product management brand man experience. And then they went off to set what ended up being probably, I don't know if it's to this day, but it probably is the record for year-over-year sales growth. I think they had 20% year-over-year growth for 50 years at Hewlett-Packard. It was an amazing run that they had at that company. And in a lot of ways, it's being pointed to how they focused on those users and how they focused on what was starting to evolve in the discipline of product management. So in that period of time, specifically at Hewlett-Packard, I'm sorry, not Stanford, I said Stanford, it was actually Harvard where he was teaching. There was a focus on business. Now it moved from the user more to maybe the higher level business, started to focus a bit more on the markets, the business aspects of it. And you hear about the 4 Ps. And it was interesting to find that the 4 Ps and the whole science around product, price, promotion, placement, etc. came out of Michigan State University, as I've done my research. It was an evolution on study, and Michigan State University was really where that was finally doctrinated and took off as real principles of marketing and product marketing. So there was an evolution of this from Procter & Gamble, 30s into the 60s. But it wasn't really until 1976 with the founding of the Product Development and Management Association, PDMA. There's some bits in between here like lean manufacturing out of Toyota and a lot of the things that happened there throughout that. I didn't get into that much of the detail here. I tried to keep it pretty simple. But the Product Development and Management Association came out and started really publishing a guideline, and they have a hardbound book that I have on my desk. It's really more focused on manufacturing, so I don't get a lot out of it, technology. But they became sort of the leading association for product management and product people to understand the discipline and started to formalize that discipline. So from the 1930s until 76, I mean, that's a long period of time where their businesses were just starting to do this, evolve, figure it out, didn't know what they wanted to do. But it wasn't until 76, I was 3 years old and started doing product management. I got my 3rd birthday, my parents wrapped up a PDMA manual. That they really started to formalize the discipline. And then in 1993, an organization by the name of Pragmatic Marketing came around. Pragmatic Marketing has now gone on to be the gold standard for the practical application of product management. They've got hundreds of thousands of folks that they've certified and studied, and many businesses see that as if you're looking to get into product management, take the courses, put it on your resume, get certified, you're more likely to get hired. I know I look for it when I'm looking for product managers. But they have really taken the discipline and created a curriculum for students to understand it, learn it, for businesses to apply it. They've really, they understand their buyers, they understand their users very well, and they've gone out of their way to make sure that businesses understand the value of product management so that they will want to get their employees, which are the users, actually using and getting certified and taking the training. So as you move into the 2000s, you've got a much more formal discipline, and you've got different things happening here, sort of Web 2.0 in the 2000s, where the themes changed from empathize, strategize into sort of this build, release, feedback, this whole approach to build it, get market feedback, adjust. The whole agile revolution started to take hold in this time frame, and the disciplines here were around computer science and design. The approaches were really about prototyping, building a minimal viable product, an MVP, which we'll talk about today, and then UX design, user testing, kind of a shift in a way from going out and studying individual users, asking them questions, interviewing, immersing yourself in their lives and their business so that you can better market to them, all the way to the other end where you just have a bit of an understanding of the problem you're trying to solve, build it, get it out there, let them use it, and then get the meaningful feedback. So it was become less about, a lot less about the study first, build later, to the almost to the build first just so you can learn, right? From learning first to building first, as things have happened. We'll talk a bit about, you know, how to go about, you know, what build means. Build doesn't mean build a big ass product and spend a ton of money and then go learn. It's about a minimal viable product to learn what you need to learn. To learn how to mitigate those risks that you have and those big assumptions you made in your sizing, right? Those are the things you want to learn first. So an interesting evolution, I learned a lot. There's, I've provided some reference material on the back of the slide. There's a great history, written history, much deeper than this, from an organization called Mind the Product. I think they're a London-based or global product management organization. They have, I started a product tank networking group in Detroit based on the Mind the Product group. But if you're interested in networking groups around product management, Mind the Product's a good one. I'm certain they have one in Edinburgh, or maybe I should start one in Dundee. Maybe I'll come back and visit. But an interesting history on this one. So moving ahead, let's talk about the definition of product management. And this is a definition that would be, I'll source this one back to pragmatic marketing. They have again, I have a link to it, but they have a great, it's like a 10-page, I almost call it a white paper on the strategic role of product management. They're really smart because it becomes a brochure for why businesses need to invest in training for their employees to become certified in product management. But it's really true. There's so much truth in this particular paper that they've written. But within this paper, there's a pretty clear definition on the strategic role of product management is the messenger of the market, delivering information to departments that need to make fact-based decisions. So you may step back and think about product management and have a perception that product management is all about building solutions, solving problems. And I think what you'll probably find today, may be surprised by today, that product management is really not about the solution, it's about the problem. It's about understanding the problem so deeply and being able to be the messenger of the market, the voice of the market, not the voice of the customer, that's very different, but the voice of the market. That, how many million people were you guys going after? 3 million people, that's a market. Or a subset as you've sized it.
Sorry, how do you find the problem in the first place? Like if you're going to build a business and you're looking for a problem, where would you start?
Well, you could be at the pub and somebody might say, I hate doing this at work. It's the worst thing I ever had to do, and it takes up so much of my time. It's as simple as that. I mean, there's problems all around us. Sometimes it's just a conversation. When you go, and we'll get into a bit about the execution and how you do that probably a little bit more after the break. But it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of asking. It's a lot of asking why. It's a lot of understanding to get right to the heart of the problem. You may not always be obvious to say, here's this huge problem in the world, I want to go solve it. That's not always that obvious. You know, it could be as easy as, for a startup, you know, talking to your mates at a pub and finding out that they hate doing something in their job and finding a solution for it. Like, well, shit, nobody's doing that. Nobody's solving that problem. Probably should watch my language. I have a tendency to curse a little bit, so probably that would not be appropriate for Dundee University, so I apologize. So it's really about being the messenger of the market. I mean, that is the essence, that is the definition in the end. And we're going to talk about what that means, how are you the messenger of the market. We're going to talk more about, it differs a bit from going from a startup culture to more of a large enterprise corporate culture where we have a lot more stakeholders. But when you talk about being the messenger of the market and delivering information to the departments that need it, you know, you have a lot of different stakeholders in businesses, whether it's support or sales or marketing or services or engineering, etc. You know, you won't have an engineer who's writing code that's going to have at their fingertips a thorough understanding of the problem and when they're coding the solution, the ideal solution to solve that problem. They don't have that knowledge. And it's really the product manager's role to fully understand the problem and then hand it off to the creative people to solve it, the engineers to come up with the creative solutions and the way to deliver it. It's about being the messenger. So you may have seen this before. You can already think about where, in a classic sense of product management, where does product management fit? Product management has always been the center of business, technology in the market. You know, as much as you're the messenger of the market, as much as you're deeply understanding the root of the problems, these pervasive, urgent problems that customers have a willingness to pay for, you've got to overlap that with the business circle. You know, if you're in the business of workforce management and you've identified that there's a major pervasive problem out there with people whose tennis shoes get untied a lot, probably doesn't align with your business strategy to go solve that problem. That's a dumb example, but when you talk about overlapping that market knowledge with business, you have to think about where are we focused as a business? What are our core competencies as a business? What are our growth goals as a business? You know, what is our target market, et cetera, that we're really focused on? What are our core principles of our business? What is our business trying to serve? Where are we trying to get to? And overlap that with your understanding of the market. There's going to be many, many, many more problems in the market that you're going to be able to solve, and many, many more than the business is going to be willing to solve. So you have to find that perfect alignment. And then when you lay on top of that the technology overlap, you know, it's that third dimension of can we solve the problem? Can we solve the problem? You know, technology these days, creative engineers, you know, you can solve almost any problem. But does the technology exist? Is it, you know, is it cost effective to deliver? Do we have the engineers with the expertise in-house to be able to design and deliver that solution? So there's a lot of different areas. These, in the classic sense, these are sort of the three areas where product management sort of fits directly in the center of all of that. They don't have to have a deep knowledge, deep technical background. I've got enough technical knowledge to be dangerous, right? As they say, right? I know just enough where I can get myself into trouble. I make some assumptions that aren't true. I think it's really easy to do something that the engineers say you're crazy. It's not. That can be healthy in a business to push each other a little bit that way. But you sort of sit in the center. That's the sweet spot for product management. So when you think about early stage product management role, when you think about product management in a sort of a startup organization, smaller organization, organizations that may have engineering support, they're going to have sales, marketing, a management team, pre-sales and sales organizations, and then you've got product management. Product management, again, tends to sit in the center. They sit in the center of the technical, the business, the market, the product. They're the hub. They're the glue that holds together, you know, customer delight and great product. They're the center of all of that, and that's a tough place to live. It's typical to have an individual at a startup that acts. In fact, it's becoming more typical, but it wasn't until very recently that product management was even considered. You have an engineer that thinks they know the market problems and they're just going to go code it. Well, they're coding so much they lose track of what the market changes were. They end up building something that the market doesn't need by the time they're done. So, you know, having product management early stage, normally directly in the center, doing a lot of things, wearing a lot of hats, being the bridge to a lot of different departments. The problem is what ends up happening is that the product manager ends up becoming the janitor. They're doing everything, including sweeping the floors, waxing the floors, mopping the floors. They are the master of everything, and I can tell you, you can get 10 miles wide and like a ½ inch deep. You're spread so thin, in fact, because you're doing so many things, you can't really do anything well. Product managers often the janitor for a while as the business matures and does what has to be done in order to make the business successful. So, product managers responsible for, can be responsible for doing demos.